Hey everybody, we're live. We're on time. My guest is here this week. And it's all coming together. It's all coming together. I'm really excited about our guest tonight. Um, but before we jump into all of that, hello to everybody here watching live. So glad y'all could make it. And if you are watching in the future and you are watching the replay, I'm so glad you stopped by. Let me introduce myself. I'm Adelia Borishade. Most people know me as Picky Girl Travels the World. I am the founder of Picky Girls Travel Solo, a Facebook group for Black women who want to solo travel, who are currently solo traveling, to share, ask questions, all that kind of fun stuff. I am also the creator of the Financial Confidence Academy, where I help Black women master their money, become financially confident so that they can live the life that they've always dreamed about. So, on this channel, we talk about travel, we talk about living abroad, we talk about finances. If any of those things sound good to you, you are in the right place and you should absolutely subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know the next time I go live with a guest or I upload a video. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so last week the live did not go the way it was supposed to.
What
The
happened?
I had a get. This is always the hard part about booking guests who live on the other side of the world.
Right.
I thought they were in China, and I thought they had because there's special circumstances that come into like trying to do stuff on the internet in China, like the Great Firewall, just the fact that
Yeah.
internet service is not great. Apparently, there was some confusion about time, so she will join us in the future when she has relocated to this part of the world. Um, but at the end of that live, I was like, yeah, y'all, you got to be here next week. Y'all are going to love my guest from that's you.
Oh.
Okay. So this week, Chisama is joining us to talk about her life in Oaxaca, Mexico. Now, some of y'all know I was in Oaxaca, was it like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago,
Mm.
for Rashida's birthday. I think it's a place we often hear people talk about, but I've not had the fortune to interview anybody who was living there. And I love that Chisama reached out to me. She saw the video we did on dating in Mexico, and she was like,
Yeah.
hold up. It's a little different where I am. I want to share
Right.
my point of view. And so she has graciously agreed to come and talk to us tonight. So, welcome.
Yay. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're excited. We're excited. Um, Before we jump into what life is like in Oaxaca, let's talk about you for a little bit because you're quite impressive, young lady.
Thank you. I have a lot going on. But just to give you a rundown of who I am, my name is Chisama. I'm 28 years old. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Um, I am the founder of Custom Tradition, which is a fair trade nonprofit organization where I sell uh, products that I source here in Oaxaca, also in other parts of Mexico, but mostly Oaxaca. And I work selectively with cooperatives of women. And then I promote their work in the States. And I also, the nonprofit side of it is providing them with grants so that they can grow their individual artists and businesses and be sustainable so that they don't have to depend on me um, for everything. So that's my background. I majored in Spanish in college. That's what my degree is in. So I'm fluent in Spanish, not just because of my degree, but also because I've lived in other countries. For example, I lived in Argentina for a year. I've been in Mexico for almost a year, and I've lived in other places and traveled to other places. Mostly in Latin America, I've only traveled solo because I speak the language and I feel comfortable, going, on my own here, but I haven't been to other countries on my own. Like I have never been to any Asian countries, any African countries, just because of the language difference. It's like I don't really know, how I'll get around on my own. So I usually stay in Latin America. Yeah.
Well, I have. And I mean, hell, I lived in China for a year and a half and I only spoke 3 words of Mandarin. So
And
like
you're
it's
good.
it's possible. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting. I not that I am anywhere close to being fluent, but I forget how easy it is to move around in Latin America when you do have some
Mhm.
Spanish versus when I showed up. Where did I go? I guess it was Italy. It was
Yeah.
someplace I went recently, and I was like, you know what? I don't know any of these words. Like, I guess I've started to take that for granted that like, oh, if I pop over to Panama or Honduras, I'll be able to communicate. So I don't even think about it. And then I got to Italy and I was like, dude, I don't know any of these
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to be brave. Definitely have to be brave to do that.
Or
Um,
stupid. There's a thin line. And
yeah.
I'm never sure which side I'm on.
I think
Okay.
we've both been on both sides.
Now, you mentioned spending some time in Argentina, and
Yeah.
that piques my interest. You were there on a Fulbright
Yeah,
scholarship,
Fulbright
yes?
scholarship. I was teaching English. I wasn't in Buenos Aires, but I was in the province of Buenos Aires. Argentina is separated by provinces, and I was like in the southern part of the province in a very small town called Bahia Blanca. And it wasn't a bad experience, but definitely not my favorite place. And even when I talk to Argentine people that I meet along my travels, and I tell them like, "Oh, I used to live in Bahia Blanca," they're like, "Oh, like why did you go there?" But that's where they sent me. I didn't really have a choice. That's kind of where they sent me. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting experience.
Okay, let's talk about how that experience was interesting.
So I was living on a college campus because I was working at the college. So I was I had just graduated college. So I was kind of reliving my college life in a way. Um, and I was on a college campus with other international students because they had an international program there. So my roommates were from Mexico, from Austria, from Colombia, from France. Um, but I didn't really hang out with them that much because I really wanted to get involved in the Argentine culture. So most people I hung out with were from Argentina. Um, in terms of language, the languages everyone knows, Argentine Spanish is different.
Because that's
It's
what I
just,
was just going to ask about. How was that?
yeah, I mean, it took time for me to get used to it. But actually, when I came back from the States, I met someone who was a Spanish speaker. And the first thing they asked me was, "Are you from Argentina?" And I was like, "Me? From Argentina?" They're like, "No, because your accent." So, like, the accent had really stuck to me. And so I came back speaking like an Argentine person. But I definitely had to, like, let go of that because I realized not everyone in Latin America spoke like that. So I had to kind of retrain my brain. So now that I'm here in Mexico, I don't speak like them at all. That was back in 2017, so it's been some time. Um, but yeah, the language is definitely different. But you'll find that in all of Latin America, they all have their words. Certain words are bad words in other countries. For example, here in Mexico, concha is a type of pan dulce, it's a type of sweetbread. But in Argentina, concha is not.
Oh,
It's a woman's, female part. So, it
like
doesn't translate.
conejo.
Yes,
Here
exactly.
in Mexico, conejo is fine, but I forget what other country. Maybe it's Colombia. It's not
Yeah,
a word you would use in casual company.
exactly. So, you definitely you learn those things. No one, if you people understand that you're not a native speaker, so it's fine if you make those mistakes. But yeah, that was the English. I mean, the language bit. Um, in terms of being black, black girl, lots of stairs, lots of stairs. There was actually one other black girl that I knew of in the town. I actually befriended her. I actually found her and like sought her out, and I was like, and she isn't from the States. She's actually from Grenada, which is a small country in the Caribbean. and she has a son who's half Argentine. So she lived in that town because she got pregnant and then stayed there. But we ended up becoming good friends and just kind of going through it together. I think a lot of people thought we were prostitutes. That was something that we dealt with because apparently there were a lot of Dominican women that would come there and do that. And so they saw us and they assumed we were Dominican and, would think we're prostitutes. There was definitely a lot of fetishization also. And I was young and I just got out of college, so I kind of fell into that trap of being fetishized and allowing myself to be fetishized.
Well, it's
Um,
not always easy to spot either.
yeah. You think, oh, all these people want to get to know me. Like, it's so cool, people like me. But I mean, of course they did, but there definitely was a little bit of that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else I can say about that.
Well, um, because I don't I don't know a whole lot about the history there, but I get
Mm.
the impression that the current demographic, like I don't know that there was ever a black population per se, but what about the indigenous people?
Yeah, so one thing you will hear a lot of people from Argentina say is that, oh, they're all dead. Like there's no indigenous people. They're all dead. They're all killed off. There's no black people in Argentina, but that's not the truth. That's just what they've been told. But those people do exist, and a lot of them are in the northern part of Argentina, where more of the indigenous communities are, and actually the northern part of Argentina borders with Bolivia, so you have more of an indigenous community there in Bolivia. I mean, in the northern part of Argentina. But they definitely exist, and there are plenty of communities that are Afro-Argentine communities. I had friends there. This is something that I discovered. I had friends there that were indigenous, but it's kind of like the rhetoric that goes around is like, oh, there's no indigenous people. We're all European. A lot of people in Latin America don't get along well with Argentine people because they say, oh, they're creído, which means like they're stuck up, but they don't, they're not Latino. They say they're not Latino, which is actually true. There's some truth in that because I had a lot of friends in Argentina who had Italian passports because their grandfather was Italian, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of Italian ancestry, Spanish, German, even some Russian ancestry. So, at the end of the day, a lot of them are European. They just kind of migrated there in I don't remember, 1800s, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing to hear in comparison to a place like Mexico, where the narrative is we're all mestizo, even
Hmm.
though everybody knows there are white Mexicans and
Afro-Mexican.
there's Afro Mexicans. There's the whole range, all the way to people who are totally indigenous. Um,
Right.
but the national idea is, oh no, we're Mexican, we're
Yeah.
mestizo. So that's a very interesting contrast to see there.
Yeah. And there's actually a good amount of Argentinians here in Oaxaca and New Mexico because their economy is really, really bad. A lot of them have come here to work. Like it's better for them to work in Mexico.
Really?
Yeah, it's better for them to work here than in their country because their peso is devalued. It's so bad.
Well, Rashida from Sheeta's on the Loose was
Mhm.
there in, I guess, basically the month of December. She was there, and that's one of the biggest headaches she had was trying to buy things. And it was like, oh, are you paying in dollars or are you paying in
Um,
pesos? Because it's
yeah,
like it's going to cost you twice as much if you pay in local currency. Like that whole
right.
thing.
And they have an underground market as well. I can't remember the name of it. They have an underground market where you can buy stuff differently. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting.
Okay, so you were in this little town in the province teaching English,
Yeah,
but you ended up visiting Mexico, in particular Oaxaca. Yes.
yeah.
When was that? 2019?
19, yeah, September 2019.
Okay, and was that
Yeah.
just a vacation?
No, actually, before I came here, I learned about the artists, like the culture between artists and crafts here. And I was tired of working for other people, and I was learning about all these other fair trade organizations that were doing, working with artists. And I've always wanted to have a business of mine, but I'm also very socially conscious. So when I was younger, I had many businesses, and they always failed. One, because I just was too busy, and then two, because in the back of my mind, it was like, this money is just going to me. Like this, who is this helping? I don't know. I'm just I'm not a
No,
capitalist. I'm not a good
I'm
capitalist.
laughing because I have referred to myself as a bad capitalist
Exactly.
multiple times because that's not my thing.
Yeah.
Now, you said fair trade. Would you mind explaining what that means?
Yeah. So fair trade is basically outlined by an organization called the Fair Trade Federation, and is basically described by, instead of buying, so a lot of stores, for example, Walmart, you buy something at Walmart, but they bought something from a provider who bought something from another provider who bought something from the factory. So there's a lot of middlemen. Whereas with fair trade, you just go directly to the person who made it and they get all the profits. They're not, it's not trickling down effect. They're not just getting a little bit. Um,
So, like at Walmart, if you buy a dress for $7.99, the person who made that dress, like think about how small of a fraction of that 7.99
yeah,
they must have made. But if something
right.
is fair trade, you can be like fairly confident that the person who made it made a
Exactly.
fair wage in the creation of that product,
Yeah.
more or less.
And then there's other principles of like, um, paying them promptly and fairly, like not negotiating a price. If they say, this water bottle costs $5 and you pay $5, there's no negotiating or haggling. Also respecting like their cultural practices, not trying to change them. Um, so when I found out about fair trade, I actually hadn't, I knew about it, but I didn't really know about it until I started researching. And I was like, it looks like, something I want to do. Like it's a business, but it's helping somebody else.
It is possible to make a profit,
Yeah,
but not exploit folks.
exactly. Yeah. And have it going to someone else, the money going to someone else instead of yourself. So I did my research and I got in contact with a group of women that I actually still work with. And just through my own research online, using my Spanish skills, asking around, like I was specifically interested in a type of basket that I had seen, and I was asking around, like, does anyone know someone who makes this type of basket? And then one girl contacted me, and she sent me the contact of someone else, and someone else, and someone else, and that led me to the group that I work with today. So I got in touch with them before I came to Oaxaca. I told them that I wanted to, get to know their culture and learn about their traditional basket weaving process and possibly work with them. And they were like, yeah, come. So I came in 2019 and I spent 3 weeks visiting them, getting to know them, taking photos and videos of their work. And then I eventually decided to form what is now Custom Tradition. So I've been working with that group specifically since 2019. And then this year, we're going to be giving them a grant to help them basically build a workshop that they need in their community. That's been a little difficult for me just because it's just me doing everything. But I'm very happy to still have that relationship. We're basically friends now. Like when I first came in 2019, they really took care of me because I was a solo female traveler. So I stayed in their homes, and even now when I go visit them, they always offer up. Like one lady that I usually stay with, she's the manager of the group. Her and her husband, they always give me their bed. They're like, "Oh, you can have our bed," and they'll go sleep on the floor. I'm like, "Oh no," and like it's okay,
Oh,
but they always just like, "Oh yeah, here, have the bed," and they're just over there sleeping on the floor, and they're just very, very generous people. And I don't take advantage of that. I'm always making sure I'm giving back as much, if not more, than they're giving to me.
okay. We had a question, and I'm curious about this too. I have not shopped in a Walmart in more than a decade. quite possibly longer than that,
I
because
hate Walmart.
okay, because like, and this is like one of the reasons like I make my own clothes and that sort of thing. So I didn't even know that Walmart sold things that are labeled fair trade.
Hmm.
So if somebody is at a Walmart and an item is labeled fair trade, does what do we think of
So
that? What does
the
that
thing with
mean?
yeah, the thing with the word fair trade, people throw it around. Just like the word sustainable, people throw it around to make themselves look good. Like there are various organizations. So for example, there's the Fair Trade Federation. They have a verification, like they have a thorough vetting process, and you can recognize their label. You can look them up if you want. And they have a label that says fair trade. So if they have a verification on it, I would say it probably is fair trade if it's verified by one of those organizations. But if it just says fair trade and no label, no verification, I don't know. And
Okay.
my business personally isn't verified yet by the Fair Trade Federation. I'm still in the process, and I have to be in running for a couple of years. Um, but eventually, hopefully, I can get that. But I don't know. I don't know if it really makes much of a difference for people sometimes
Well,
to
I
see it.
think it like I the few things that I don't make myself, like I don't enjoy making t-shirts or leggings. And so I buy them from packed clothing, which is fair trade. Like,
Hmm.
like so um for me as a consumer, that verification helps because it's like at least I know that the lady who made this t-shirt, like earned a fair wage, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think it can be helpful. I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were down there trying to find this basket that then kind of develops into your business idea. Now, when did you actually move to Oaxaca?
So I moved to Oaxaca last year, September of last year. But I wasn't really planning on staying here that long. I was planning on just coming here to see my artisans again, get some stuff done. And then, with the pandemic and seeing how bad things were getting in the States, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay. I think I'm going to stay. Um, yeah, so I guess I have gone back to the States a couple times. Like, for example, I went back for the holidays, and then I just actually just got back a week ago. Went back in June. Um, but every time I come back, I bring more stuff. Every time I come back, like, let me just bring more and more.
And get settled and get
Yeah.
settled.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about, okay, and let us clarify. In
Hmm.
Mexico, there is a state of Oaxaca, but the
It's big.
capital of the state is also called Oaxaca.
Yeah, but the full name is Oaxaca de Juarez.
But most people don't say the full name.
Yeah, they just say Oaxaca City, which is fine. Yeah.
Okay. And
Oaxaca's
that's,
a huge state. It's huge. There are over 500 municipalities
wow.
here. Yeah, I think it has the most municipalities in Mexico. I don't
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah.
And what is Oaxaca's claim to fame?
Definitely the food. You know, the food is different. I don't. I've never seen Oaxacan dishes in the States at all. Only thing I've seen and heard of has been mole, which Oaxaca is very, very famous for. Its seven moles, I think. I have some friends watching this. They may be able to correct me. Um, um, but yeah, they're definitely well known for the moles. But a lot of Oaxacan food you just won't see in the United States. We're used to seeing tacos, quesadillas. The quesadillas here are very different from what we
Yes,
think of.
they are.
Yeah, for quesadillas, even tacos here, things that they call tacos here are a little different. But yeah, definitely, I would say it's well known for its food. Of course, for the indigenous communities here, there's many, many, many indigenous groups here, languages. Some of the largest are the Zapotec, which are in the area that I'm in Los Valles Centrales, which are the central valleys. That's where I'm located right now. You also have the Mixtec people. Um, so those are the largest indigenous ethnic groups. But one thing I actually just learned recently was that people are drawn to Oaxaca because a lot of the indigenous culture is still maintained, and that's because of its geography. Because when the colonizers came, it was harder for them to kind of get in there because of the mountains. Like Oaxaca is just mountains everywhere. So I think because of the geography, it's been able to maintain a lot of its traditions. It hasn't been whitewashed in a way.
I've heard it be referred to kind of like it's the heart of Mexico, like you know,
Yeah,
um, because when I think of artisans, that's what I think of. I think of Oaxaca,
yeah.
and traditional culture. That's what I think of.
Pre-colonial, a lot of pre-colonial,
Yeah.
like people, bugs. Insects is still part of the culinary diet here. That's something you won't really find in a lot of parts of Mexico. It's really big here. Yeah, eating grasshoppers. I love eating grasshoppers. That's one of my favorite things to eat. I have put them on my guacamole and
That's I don't eat guacamole. The name picky girl comes from I'm a very picky eater. So I don't eat
right.
guacamole, I don't eat fruits, I don't eat vegetables. I have tried grasshoppers, and the experience was
Eh,
a lot like eating popcorn for me. It got stuck in my
it's
teeth, a
crunchy.
little salty, a little crunchy, and that's the thing. But I hear with guacamole, like it's just the greatest thing ever. Not that I
Yeah,
will ever know from personal experience, but that's what I hear.
yeah, yeah. It's really interesting how I'm I would say I'm picky also, but I don't know. I can be picky and I can be not too picky, but it's really interesting to see how I've kind of just accommodated myself to the culture here and just kind of embraced all of it. And wherever I live, I tend to do that. I tend to just, if this is what they're doing, I'm just going to immerse myself fully in it. For example, in Argentina, um, they drink mate. Mate is definitely a thing. And I really immersed myself to the point that I was drinking it daily. I was drinking it boiling hot. And I got so used to drinking it boiling hot that it didn't affect me. I didn't burn myself. Here in Oaxaca, I really have thrown myself into drinking mezcal when I go out. That's People here drink mezcal. And just to let y'all know, like mezcal is not like tequila.
No,
The
all
flavor is
tequilas,
different.
what is it? All mezcals. No, all tequilas are mezcals, but not all mezcals are tequilas.
Yeah, mezcal is different. In the United States, we're used to drinking tequila like a shot, just kind of like throwing it back. But here in mezcal, you sip it. You don't
Yeah,
you don't treat it like
you
that.
do a shot of mezcal, you're gonna be hurting. That is not
Yeah.
advised.
Yeah,
Not
no,
advised.
it'll mess you up. I last week I had I'm a lightweight, but last week I had two shots of mezcal over the course of 3 hours maybe, and I was gone.
Yeah.
I was gone.
It's
So
I I I think mezcal is superior to tequila, but
mm,
that's just my opinion. You
yeah.
said that you'd like to immerse yourself in the places that you lived. Have you been able to do that there in Oaxaca?
Yeah, I think I have an advantage because I work with artists and groups that are from here. So a lot of times I get invited to their homes to experience traditional things. For example, Day of the Dead, I was in the family home of one of my partner artists and groups, and I got to see them, create their altar and open the doors for the ancestors to come in and drink mezcal as a ritual and go to the graveyard with them. Um, so I definitely, being able to speak Spanish also helps with that, helps me connect with those people. Recently, I haven't been working with my artisans as much just because I'm in a different focus of my business, more of like the business aspect. So I've been a little more cut off, I would say, from them, especially where I live. Where I live is tourists everywhere. You definitely really have to like get out if you really, really, really want to experience the real Oaxaca. And luckily, I've been able to meet some people and befriend people who are locals here who have, taken me to their towns. But I would definitely say like being able to speak Spanish has helped me connect with those people and really get immersed. Um, and I actually don't hang out with foreigners here. That's kind of like a rule that I have for myself because I've noticed when I hang out with foreigners, I'm losing my Spanish. I'm really hard on myself in that way. But really, like for example, when I went back to the States, and I came back here, it was like it was hard for me to get the Spanish words out because I've been speaking English so much. So when I'm here, I really try to befriend locals. And a lot of my friends aren't all locals. A lot of my friends are Mexican, but they're from Mexico City and they live here or Veracruz. But I really just try to only hang out with Spanish speaking people. That's just how I've always been. Even when I've done study abroad in college, I didn't really hang out with the kids that I was in school with when I was abroad, just because I can see y'all in the States, I didn't leave the States to, continue to hang out with you. And that's perfectly fine if you want to do that. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. And I think it's definitely some level of comfort. And I will say I do have friends here, some Black women here that I'm friends with. Um, so I wouldn't say I don't ever hang out with them, but I can understand why people do. It's definitely comfort. Like, you don't speak the language. You sometimes just want to be yourself. Um, which brings me to another topic, staring. I get stared at a lot here.
Really?
Did you get stared at when you're here?
When I went initially during the summer during Gelagetza, and I didn't feel like I got stared at a lot, but folks talked to me. And
Mm.
I am an introverted introvert. I don't talk to strangers. I don't talk to people I don't know. And these folks kept trying to strike up a conversation. And I
Yeah.
was like, what is this about? Um,
Hmm.
but I don't recall being stared at. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I, you know,
Maybe
I
you
was
didn't
living
notice.
in I was living in China at the
Maybe you're like,
time, and the level of staring there. So maybe anything less than that, I'm just kind of what else?
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's something I'm still getting used to because it's actually happened to me pretty much every Latin American country I've been in. Whether because of the color of my skin, that was one case in Argentina was more stares because of the color of my skin. Here it's more of my hair. So actually, just January of this year, I had locks. I actually combed my locks out. But when I moved here, my locks were down to my butt. So, you know, a lot of the staring was because of my hair. And I knew this because people would ask me a lot. And that would always be the conversation would be about my hair. One time I even had a guy almost crash his motorcycle because he was driving down the road, looking at me like that. And then he swerved. And, for me, that made me feel really, it doesn't make me feel good because in the United States, you stare at someone, it's 3 seconds and then boom, you keep it pushing. But here it's they will keep staring at you.
I wonder about that because one, given Oaxaca is one of the places mentioned as being one of the blackest parts of Mexico.
Mm.
So I would have thought that it would be less of a big deal to see you
I would say on the coast. The coast
on
is
the
more on the black,
coast.
but I'm about a 7, 8 hour drive away
Okay.
from the coast.
And
Um,
I remember a lady at the market who she was, and of course I had a lot more hair then. She was asking me if I was from Belize. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that. But then I thought about geographically where we were, and I was like,
yeah,
okay, maybe that's a good guess for her.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, that's interesting.
yeah. I think it's definitely because of the hair. For example, there's a lot of people in Oaxaca who are my skin tone. Even there are people here that are darker than me, just indigenous people. Like a couple of times I've been walking down the street and I see someone, I'm like, are they black? I can't, I can't tell. And then I get close, I'm like, oh, they're not black. So I was just like, is it that it took me a while to figure out, is it my skin tone? Because, we're the same color. And then I realized after getting asked about my hair a lot that it was
It's the
definitely hair.
hair.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess that's a good segue into dating. in Oaxaca.
Yeah.
You date not there?
I am. What do you mean by dating?
Do you go on dates with people?
I did, but now I am seeing somebody.
Okay, I think that
And
qualifies as dating too.
okay, okay, okay. I always have to clarify because everyone has a different definition. Yeah, I have. I actually when I moved to Oaxaca, I was in a relationship with someone in the States, and that ended. And then I, started. I was like, why not? Um, and I did download Tinder. I would say I did download Tinder because one, I just wanted to meet people, and two, it was just like when you think about dating people, that's the for me at least in my generation, that's the first thing you think. Like that's the first channel that you think of. Um, but I did not realize that. So I was when I got Tinder, I was mostly going out with foreigners. Um, and after doing that a couple times, realizing that I can't keep hanging out with foreigners because they're here one day and gone the next. Like I want something, longer term, and you can't build a relationship like that. You can't like there's for me, I'm not the type of person to meet somebody one day and I'm like, oh, I'm so in love with you. Like, let's stay. Like, I just need more time. Um, so I definitely got away from doing that, hanging out with foreigners because they're gone the next day. Um, and then I actually will say that I was a little more cautious about swiping right for men who are local, just because of the machismo. Like that's a really big thing. And like just yesterday, another woman was murdered, by her partner here. So I think that kind of made me hesitant to go out on dates with local guys.
Because
Um,
Oaxaca is a fairly conservative part of Mexico, right?
yeah, it's fairly conservative. Every other day, there's a girl going missing, a woman who's murdered by her partner. And that's just not, it's not just Oaxaca. You see it all over Mexico. But part of me was just kind of like, I just don't know if I can really connect these guys because they might be expecting me to be a certain way. And I'm very liberal. I didn't grow up in a religious family. I'm very just eccentric person. Um, but yeah.
Okay, so, because no, this for the 5 minutes that I be on the apps because I get very frustrated and then I'm like, why am I here? Let me
Right,
delete this
just
off
throw
of
the
my
phone.
phone. But that is the cultural piece of it of like their expectations for who you are as a woman versus like who you actually are. Like that is something that crosses my mind. But
Yeah.
you went on dates, so you were able to move past that.
So I will say I didn't really go. I have a habit of like I'll upload Tinder and I'm like, you know what? Like I don't want to do this anymore. So I kind of stopped doing that. Um, and yeah, I have gone on dates with some locals here. Um, the guy that I'm seeing right now, I met him naturally, like, at a show. And I prefer that. I prefer to just I'm kind of a believer in that using Tinder, you're kind of I feel like you're blocking your blessings when you're
Hmm.
losing Tinder because you're like actively trying to get something to come to you. Whereas if you just kind of like leave it to the universe, like
You,
what you need comes to you rather than just trying to like bring it to you immediately. So that's one reason I kind of stop using Tinder. I'm like, you know what? When it happens, it'll happen. I don't know how it'll happen, but it'll happen.
the
Um,
universe tends to unfold as it should.
yeah. So the guy I'm seeing right now, I met him at a show, and we just started off as friends mostly. For me, it was weird because in the United States, if someone's nice to you, a guy especially, they want something. And then with this guy, I realized it wasn't like that. It was like genuinely, like he genuinely was concerned for my safety, and genuinely wanted to show me Oaxaca. Like he's not from the city; he's from a different town, closer by, about 20-minute drive from here. And like he knew that I really wanted to like immerse myself in the culture. So he's taken me to his town and like has helped me. Um, and so that was kind of weird for me. Like I said, I was just like, I'm not used to guys being so nice and not wanting something. So I was like, they said, oh, so I was like, I don't know. Um, but of course I fell for him. I don't like saying fall for somebody. Like that's a negative term, but of course I eventually started to like him more and more, um, because of that. And we're taking it slow. But I've
It,
met his, huh?
is he about your age?
He's about 4 years older than me, um, which is fine for me. Um, but I've already met his family, his friends, well, some of his friends, um, grandma, aunts, uncles, cousins, because in his town, everybody is related. Like there's been a couple of times when we've gone out and he's like, "Oh, there's my cousin. Oh, I think that's my cousin. I think I'm related to them." It's just like that. So it's really interesting.
So, okay. So you watched the panel conversation we had
Hmm.
maybe a month ago about dating in Mexico. And what do you want to add to that, or what do you feel like might look, because most of everyone who was on that panel, their experience was here in Mexico City or in Playa del Carmen. How do their experiences stack up to what you've experienced there in Oaxaca?
I don't really remember everything that they said, but I think I remember when I was watching, I was thinking about the conservative aspect of Oaxaca as compared to Mexico City. I've been to Mexico City and I've seen how people are a little more, a little more out there. You see a little more, of the LGBTQ community there, kind of out there. Here in Oaxaca, I have seen it, but it's not as out there as it is compared to Mexico City. But one thing I do remember thinking about when I was watching that was the approach, kind of like how people approach you here. Like you said, Oaxaca is more of a conservative. It's more conservative. So I would say, the guys, the men, their interaction with you is just a little more conservative, um, in the sense that I don't know how to explain it.
Like, would a dude try and kiss you on the first date?
No, exactly.
Okay.
That's what I mean. There you go.
um, what about, because here in Mexico City, PDA is just
I have my
it
theories.
is a okay. So I want to hear your theory.
I've seen PDA here, and I've done it here. Um, so here's the thing: Oaxaca and Mexico in general, and this is something I've seen in other countries in Latin America. The Catholicism that is present, and a lot of people here understand that you don't do certain things with a woman until you are married with them. For example, the guy that I'm seeing, not to put his brother on the spot, but he told me about his brother. His brother, who's around my age, um, moved in with his girlfriend of 10 years. No, actually, they're not his girlfriend. I think they're engaged. But his parents, he was telling me that his parents were kind of like, why are you guys moving in together if you're not married? So it's kind of like that aspect of like, you don't cross those lines with the woman until you are married. You're not living with her, moving in with her. I wouldn't say it's like that in all of Oaxaca, but generally from what I've understood is that you have to take those. And then you'll see a lot of guys who live with their families still. Like if you're not married, then you're living with your family. And that's perfectly fine, considering the financial circumstances. It just makes more sense to stay with family. But generally people will move out course, when they marry. Whereas in the United States and maybe in Mexico City, you have more people living on their own, whether they're single, married, or in a relationship, um, which I personally don't think is a good idea considering the financial circumstances.
No, I really feel like, given the current economic situation in the US is sort of an anomaly in this, where we expect folks to move out of the house at 18 years old and set up
Yeah,
shop, whereas it makes far more sense to stay. If Now, I say this, but I'm somebody who, I wanted to move out when I was 13 because I was like, this is some bullshit. I need up out of here. But if you don't like the family you're born into, it still makes more sense to like combine your resources economically and co-live and that sort
right.
of thing. And I very much think the current situation in the US is going to push it more that way and make it more
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah. That was also the case in Argentina. Also, the guys were living with their families.
And I think my theory is that's why PDA is so public
In
here,
the
because you
park,
can't go
you
home
can't go home. Yeah,
because abuela is at the house. So,
right. And she's gonna
so
think badly because she's like, "You're not supposed to be doing that. You're not married, so why are you doing that?" So yeah,
yeah.
that's true. It's very true.
Mm.
And I think, I'm not calling anyone out specifically, but in my experience being a foreigner, I've noticed guys gravitating more to foreign girls because they know
They think
they don't
foreign
have
girls are
that.
easy.
Yeah, one, they live by themselves. They probably don't live with their family members. They do think they're easy. They think they're just here for a good time. They just want to experience, that Mexican Chile.
All right, y'all, give me a second. It's
Okay.
hailing right now, and I think I left the balcony door open. Hold on. Aha.
Oh, I thought you were gonna be
Okay.
gone for a long time.
No, no,
Okay.
no, no. That's
I
that's
just
the
was scaring
joy.
me.
That's the joy of rainy season in Mexico City. I think rainy season
Oh
officially
no.
started yesterday because it rained and it hailed. It's never large hail, but and so I could already hear it hitting the window. And I
Oh
remembered
God.
I was waffling about, well, is it going to rain or is it not going to rain? But I did close it because I thought this would happen. So
Yeah, I
that's
had
what it's
water
doing.
enter into my apartment yesterday because the rain was so bad. Um, but yeah, you definitely. That's my theory, and you agree that that's why PDA. You'll see people making out in the park. Older people too. People who are like,
Yes, yes, there is no age limit. And I'm here for it, but coming from the US, we often forget how in a lot of ways the US is very things are very like sexualized and all that, but at its core the United States is pretty prudish. And
hmm,
so seeing PDA like from people who are like old enough to be my parents' age at the park, I'm just like, what? But
yeah.
yeah,
Actually, the other
it's
day I saw older. I was actually with the guy I'm seeing now. I was like, Jesus, these old people are like making out, but you could tell based on what they look like, it seemed like maybe they didn't live together. Like one of them was probably living with their mom still. I don't
yeah,
know.
but
I just wish that shame didn't exist. It's kind of like, we're doing it. Like
well, I think that's the dichotomy of trying to hold on to those religious beliefs, but then there's because like none of this is new. Like
right,
folks were having babies and they were not married. That's been around as long as there have been people.
right,
And people feel better if they can dress it up or say, but oh, but y'all weren't here making out. But yeah, we know you're at the park making out.
right. Yeah, yeah. But then, so I was gonna say I have a friend here. He's from Mexico City, and he's been living here for about 3 years. And he always complains that he hates living here because I'm not, there's nothing against, it's not really Oaxaca related, but he hates living here because he can't really socialize with people because he says everyone's married and has kids. And people here, they get married and they have kids at a young age, like, I don't know, 16, they're having kids and married. So he was just like, it's so hard to like hang out with people because they're married and they have kids. And you will find that. And that's actually kind of been my struggle too, is really getting to know people who are locals. The only people that I really know who are locals are the artisans I work with and the guy that I'm seeing. But all my other Spanish speaking friends, they're not from here. They're from Mexico City, Veracruz, other parts of Mexico. So they're a little more, they're a little more open. They're not married and have kids.
Well, and I think like that's interesting. Um, Given my age, I just assumed like again, if I mentioned this in that episode where we talked about dating, that typically in the US, I date dudes that are younger than me. But guys in that age range here, like you are definitely living at home with your parents, and
Yeah.
like it's different. So I would imagine like finding somebody your age or a little older that's single and like never been married. Like I would imagine that there's not a lot of folks that fit that category.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not. And if they're not married, they are in a relationship, they've been together for a good amount of time, since childhood, which is fine. That's just the circumstance. But yeah, Oaxaca's definitely more on the conservative side. I think it's slowly changing, but and on the curve, when I talk about conservative, also I mean like, for example, not really relationship related, but like a couple times I've gone out and have worn like shorts, but like finger length shorts, and I'm getting called at, or like
Because you
wearing
have on
leggings.
shorts.
Yeah, like these aren't even booty shorts. Like these are like the safe shorts, and you're hollering at me like these are my ugly shorts. Or like one other day I went out and I wore leggings, and people were like whistling at me. And I don't get whistled at often actually, because I usually wearing pants. But yeah, that was like, really, leggings? Like leggings are so 2008, like
But like you said, it is a more conservative area. Because do you know what the population is there? It's hard for me because like to me I'm like it's a small town, but it's not. It's
it's a
bigger than a
village,
small town, but
but
it is small. But I'm
yeah,
coming from a city where there are 22 million people, so of course to
yeah,
me it's going to seem small.
yeah. I think Oaxaca is a village with a lot of cars, in my opinion. It's a pueblo still. You can actually walk the whole perimeter, I guess, of
Yeah,
the Oaxaca center in like 2 hours,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I did not worry about when we were there a couple of weeks ago. I didn't worry about transportation once we got to Central because I was like, literally, we can walk to everything
Everywhere.
there is. It
Yeah.
was the big question of getting from the airport. This was the first time I flew. When I came
Mhm.
previously, I took the bus and literally, walked from the bus station
Right.
to my hotel, to my
Yeah.
hostel.
Yeah.
So, no, it is. So, um,
Do you have any questions? Any
yeah.
new
Oh,
questions?
there are some questions, but I'm gonna give y'all some more time to put questions in there. Somebody did ask about the divorce rate. I
Mhm.
feel like folks don't get divorced. They just get girlfriends.
Yeah, I know I have a lot of people that I know here whose fathers aren't in their lives. Their fathers got 5 different kids by 5 different women. I know a couple guys like that. So I think it's like the United States, It's like you got deadbeat dads everywhere, you know. I know people who don't know their dads here, or people who their dad has like 10 kids. Yeah.
Um, you are in Oaxaca City, which is not near the beach,
No, it's
but does
mountains.
yes. Does Oaxaca have beaches? Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
So Puerto Escondido is the main beach area. There's some other beaches along that coast, like Zipolite, Mazunte, and there's another one called Chakawa. Chakawa is an area where the Afro Oaxacan people live. That's one of the areas.
the guy who used to cut my hair here
Mhm.
uh, now goes out there and like offers his barber services and is like raising
Nice.
money to train folks there in how to cut hair. Because I can't say that word, but as soon as you said it, I was like, I know.
Yeah,
Oh, uh,
Chakawa.
Javier was just talking about that place.
Yeah,
Um,
so there's a beach.
Okay. Somebody asked about rainy season. Here in Mexico City, rainy season typically goes from June into October. Like
Same here.
exact start date, stop dates, it
Yeah.
varies.
And here it started with the hurricane. Like the hurricane literally hit like June 1st, May
Now, and
31st.
and here, typically, when the weather acts like it's supposed to, which it has not been, but uh, rainy season, it is dry all day, and then it rains around like 5, 6 o'clock for maybe an hour or
Hmm.
so. So it's not something, at least in this part of Mexico, that would impact your vacation because it's like you just make sure you do everything before the rain comes.
Right. Always carry your umbrella. Today I almost left without my umbrella because I knew it was gonna rain. But yeah, here the rain is sporadic. It's not a all day thing. It's like at night, maybe a little bit, early afternoon, maybe a little bit. But yeah, it's not the whole day.
Okay. When we were talking earlier about your hair causing some of the
Nose ring.
staring, there were questions about did the nose ring draw any attention to you or,
So
you know,
actually, this particular ring, I actually just put this in this week. This particular one, I had another one that was a little more hidden, a little more, you can't really tell from afar. But I have so the thing with Oaxaca is like the people here are very. They'll look at you, but they won't say anything because they're very respectful. They're not going to be like, "What's that on your face?" Like they'll stare, but they won't say anything unless you are in a conversation with them. Then they might say something. But I could probably say that some of the stares probably have been because of the nose ring. But before I put this nose ring in, it was definitely the hair. Um, but yeah, I have been thinking about them. Like, are they staring at my hair or my nose ring? Because it is kind of big. But I actually walk around with my mask. People, I don't know how it is in Mexico City, but people here are wearing masks like
oh
24/7.
no, we are still wearing masks. The in Mexico City, the the rule about like you have to wear one on public transit or indoors, that's been gone since the beginning of April, and you
Hmm.
wouldn't know it because we are all still wearing masks. It's
Yeah,
very easy to pick out the tourists because they're the ones
yeah.
that don't wear masks.
Yeah. I mean, it's just hot sometimes. It's like, look, I'm
Well,
outside. Like,
no, I struggled when I was there a couple of weeks ago because it was like I want to wear my mask, but it's hot.
yeah.
And somebody else asked about the weather. I assume May is typically the hottest month there because that's what it's like
Yeah, it
here.
starts getting hot like March, starts getting hot. I don't know when's the hottest because this is actually the first time I've been here during June. I didn't get here till September. And then
Okay.
last time I came for the first time, I was in September also. So I don't know. But yeah, it's rainy, but it's still kind of hot. It's still kind of hot.
Um, what's your access to black hair care?
My access is the suitcase full of hair products that I brought back from the States. There is one girl here. She's actually from Guinea in Africa.
Hmm.
She's a friend of mine. She does hair. She does hair. Actually, she does hair. She puts in braids, box braids for locals here because a lot of locals want the box braids. She's the only person I know of, and I've gone to her to do like cornrows and stuff. I really do need to figure that out though. But This last trip to the United States, I brought my own extensions. I brought hella shea butter, a hella shea moisture.
Now you
There,
can. I got a
huh,
connect for raw shea butter in
oh my God,
Mexico.
I need
Fair
it.
trade, no
I need
less.
it.
I'll send you
I
that.
need it.
But yeah, hair, no.
Yeah, it just so I would recommend honestly bringing your essentials. But when I went to the States, I brought back stuff that I could make my own hair products with. For example, I brought back shea butters and like castor oil and stuff so I can like make my own like leave-in conditioner. Um, there's Sally Beauty Supply here, and there's a Walmart here. I haven't been to the Walmart yet. There's another store here actually the other day. Well, not the other day, but like a month ago, I went to this other store, which is like a Walmart, and I saw Shea Moisture shampoo. There was only one there. So it was like somebody found out about this and they just,
In Baltimore. Because
yeah.
yeah, Walmart, well, they used to be called Superama, but it was a grocery store owned by Walmart. I forget what they're called now. But at most of the chain grocery stores, you can get Shea Moisture and Cantu products.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen Cantu. I've seen Cantu.
Now, outside of that, it
Yeah, you're not
gets a
gonna find
little
anything outside of that. Yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
bring your needs. Bring those.
Okay.
Get
And
your
it
culture.
is it because Costa Chica is the area that I often hear about where you would find
Hmm.
more Afro Mexicans. Is that on the Pacific side? Because
It
Oaxaca
probably
doesn't
is.
touch the
Yeah.
other. Does Oaxaca
No, it
touch both
doesn't.
sides? Okay.
No. Yeah, it would be the Costa Chica. But yeah, there are various municipalities and cities and towns. That one I've heard of, Costa Chica. I'm trying to look at my map now. Chakawa is the other one I mentioned. Um, there's another one called Rio. I think it's called Rio Negro. I can't remember. So yeah, pretty much all along the coast. And actually, I just went to the coast for my birthday in March, and I did not get stared at the same way I get stared at here. And people here have asked me, like, are you from the coast of Oaxaca? Because I speak Spanish, so they think, oh, you're from the coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, didn't y'all just have an earthquake?
Ooh.
Yes.
Yeah, like I have an alert. I wouldn't call them earthquakes. I would just call them earth shakes. When I
There
think
is
of earth,
seismic activity.
yeah. When I think of earthquake, I think of something like stuff falling. But we have moments of shaking, and I've experienced two or three of those. In 1 week, we had like three. Um, I just went running. Like I just went running out of my apartment because I live in the top floor. Just didn't even think. Felt it. I saw stuff moving. I was like, nope, and I just got out. Um, they say you shouldn't sleep naked here.
That was the lesson I learned. Um, because my very first earthquake in my entire life, uh,
No.
I when I woke up and I was like, okay, I guess I go outside. I was like, where are my pants? And that's what I was like, yeah, you should not sleep naked here
No,
because
bad
unless
idea.
you're gonna be out in the street in front of everybody
Yeah,
naked,
and actually, I had on booty shorts that day, and I was like, whatever, like
y'all gonna get. Well, the last time I'm trying to think. I think the seismic alarm because y'all don't have that there. I don't think.
I think we do have
Okay.
something. I don't hear
The
it a lot, but yeah.
the seismic alarm went off and I was like, should I go? Should I not go? And I opened my front door and I could see my neighbor must have just been in his in the shower because I see
Oh
this half naked
no!
man with a towel go past me. And I was like, you know what? At this point, because
At least he grabbed the towel.
yes, I was like, at this point, I'm gonna just stay put and we'll see if because it was the alarm, there wasn't shaking. And I was like, I'll just stay
Hmm.
put. If they're shaking, I'll go down after the shaking.
No,
But
in
yeah,
Mexico City, you can't play, right? Because there was a huge one in 2017.
I was here for
Like,
that. That my very first one
dang.
was 12 days before that. That one was on the anniversary of the 1985 quake. After the 1985 quake, they instituted I thought it was a national earthquake drill, but it happens at the time of the 85 quake. So I'm at UNAM taking my Spanish course. We're outside, we're observing. So you observe the lives lost in 85 and you do a drill. One something that same day, there's
Wow.
this big earthquake. Um, so yeah,
So
that was a
you were there for the biggest one.
yes, the big one. And then there was another one the day Black Panther opened because I was in the Uber on the way to the theater, and I'm here on the radio something about Sismo.
I know.
He turns off the car, and we're waiting. The car shakes. We wait a little bit more. He turns it back on, and I'm gone to the movies. So yeah,
Oh, really? So he
oh
was
yeah,
like, "We'll just wait it out." Okay,
yeah. Like
interesting.
so I got introduced to earthquakes in quite the fashion because
Yeah.
I'm from Texas. That's not something I'm used to at all.
Yeah, me
Not at
neither. That was
all.
my first. That was my first earthquake. Was here ever. Yeah. But
Okay.
every now and then, because it just always catches you off guard. So it's like some days I'm like, what if it happens today? And I'm like, or sometimes in the shower I'm like, what if it happens when I'm in the shower? I have soap in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like
It's but I think I I used to think that I would not want to live someplace that had earthquakes, but I think once you come to terms with there is nothing you can do. You can't know about it ahead, like so hopefully you won't
yeah,
be in the shower, but there's always the chance you could be.
yeah.
And you make your peace with that. Um so like when you because we've talked about what the dating scene is like there or not like um like if you want to go out in Oaxaca City, what does that look like?
I mean, there definitely are clubs here, clubs where you can dance. You can do traditional dances like well, I wouldn't call them traditional, but you can do partner dances, like which is what I like to do. I like to dance salsa and cumbia. So there's a place for that. There's a place if you're more into techno, just kind of want to vibe out. There's a little bit of everything. Only thing I will say I have not been able to find, which makes me sad, is hip hop. There's not really a hip hop scene here.
Hmm.
Um, but there definitely are places. But for me, for someone who's living here, I kind of get tired of those places because you go to the same places, all the time. There's a couple places that come to my mind right now. Um, so once you live here, I think it's at least for me, I kind of get bored easily with going to the same place.
And how do you find out about those places? Is that like in WhatsApp groups or on Facebook?
Yeah, I'm in some WhatsApp groups that are some like it's like there's a group of like 200 people that's like a mixture of tourists and locals. So yeah, I found out about some places through that, um, or going on dates as well. Being invited to go out for mezcal and then go dancing at another place. Then also just living here. You see people lined up at 1 a.m. at night to go inside somewhere. So you're like, okay, that's the club. But there definitely isn't a hip hop scene here, which is fine. I can live without it, but
But it would be nice.
it would be nice. It would be nice. But I actually really am a big fan of reggaeton, doing dancing salsa, cumbia. So I have a little bit of everything here. Um, but yeah, there's places to go to. There's a lot of bars. If you're into bars, there's a lot of bars in Oaxaca, and they all cater to mezcal. Uh,
Do you have a recommendation or a favorite one?
a mezcal place. Well, there's a bar I like to go to. It's called Sabina Sabe. It's here in the center. I like going there. There's another place called El Chato, which it's more of a cantina, so it's more local. They don't cater. They're not playing like American music. They're playing banda, which is like typical Mexican music. Um,
How would you describe banda? Because somebody asked me that, like, and I was trying to categorize it, and I would say it's kind of country adjacent,
yeah,
maybe.
I would compare it to that. Yeah, It's very heavy on the trumpet heavy, very loud, and it's romantic also. Usually the songs are romantic. I would consider it, yeah, I would compare it to country music. But I actually really like banda. I really do like it. Um, and that's what you'll hear more of here.
I feel like it's one of those things like if you know the words and you can like get into, because it seems like everybody sings
Yeah.
along,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if
You're
you
like,
don't know it, it's kind of like but if you
yeah.
know it, like then you can get involved. That's my observation.
And I'm kind of weird. Like if I keep hearing a certain song a lot when I go out, I'll look the song up and I'll be like, what are they saying? Like maybe I can learn the lyrics so I can like, join in with them uh, when they're singing. But yeah.
If you had to compare Oaxaca to someplace in the US, where would it be?
So again, Oaxaca's a big state. So if I would compare the place I live right now,
Which is Oaxaca City.
Oaxaca City, and I would compare it to, I've actually thought about this. I would compare it to Asheville, North Carolina. Have you ever been there?
No, but I have read books that have taken place there.
Yeah, Asheville's kind of like, very focused on the artisan, very handmade. Um, I would compare it to Oaxaca for that aspect. And then also the size. I don't know I mean, Asheville is probably bigger than Oaxaca, but when I think of Asheville, like Asheville City Center, I think of Oaxaca. Or maybe even New Orleans. Um, New Orleans is very colorful in that
Okay.
aspect.
And I could see the food
And the food,
kind of
like
comparison.
being really well known for the food
Okay.
in that aspect. And then kind of what, I hate to say it, but Oaxaca is being gentrified. Like
Is
what I pay for rent, a lot of locals can't pay that. They can't afford that. They can't even afford half of that. So
and I almost want to say, is there a part of Mexico that isn't at this point?
yeah. Well, if there is, we don't know about it.
Yeah.
Let's say, yeah.
Is there Uber?
There is not Uber, but there are apps similar
I
to
was
Uber.
gonna
They're not
say, I
called Uber.
think
It's Didi.
Didi,
Yeah,
but not from the airport. From the airport,
they
you
don't
need
let you.
to do the collectivo or private transfer. But yeah,
Yeah, so usually when I fly, well, actually, before I started seeing this person, because he actually picks me up from the airport now. Um,
that's nice.
yeah, it's really nice. Um, so before that, I would walk out. So here's a trick to any of you who are planning on coming to Oaxaca. Just walk outside of the airport gate, walk down the road. You will see some guys outside of the airport gate in a red and white taxi, and they'll be saying, "Taxi." They will charge you half the price. They will charge you like 80 to 100 pesos to get wherever you go. And I learned that when I first came. I always try to look for the locals. Like I see the locals, all the locals are going to this one place. Like I'm
Let
gonna
me
follow
go.
them.
Let me go
Yeah.
see what they're doing. Okay. Okay. This is last call. If y'all got questions about life in Oaxaca or anything like that, the name of your company is Custom Tradition.
Yes. Custom
And in
tradition.
case people came in later, would you remind us what it is that you do at Custom Tradition? And I'm going to put a link in the description for y'all.
Yeah. So custom tradition is a fair trade um, nonprofit organization where I support Indigenous women and artisans by promoting their handicrafts to a global market. So that's just a fancy way to say I buy directly from them and then I sell their products in the States. But the nonprofit aspect of it is providing them with grants for them to grow their artisan businesses and collectives. Right now, I focus mostly on home decor goods. That's what I mostly sell. So I work with collectives that make baskets, make textiles. Hopefully, we'll be doing some ceramics soon, even though that's a little harder to get into the States just because they might break.
So you
But
ship
yeah,
to the US.
yeah, I ship to US and then distribute to the customers from there.
Okay.
Um, but yeah.
Okay. Now, you have used Tinder in Oaxaca. Is that the only app that you have used there?
No, I think I also was on Bumble for a little bit, but the thing is, Tinder here is still relatively new. For me, Tinder is the ghetto. Like, in the United
I think for
States,
most people, Tinder is the ghetto.
it's the ghetto. So here is still relatively new. So there you'll find more people on that, especially locals. You'll find more locals on Tinder. Um, but I don't have any dating apps anymore.
Well, yeah, you don't need them. You don't need them. Okay, let me see if there are any other questions in here. Okay. How did you find your apartment?
I found my apartment on Facebook Marketplace, and I would definitely recommend using Facebook Marketplace because that's what the locals use. There are also other, so I've actually moved 3 times in Oaxaca until I found the place I live in. Before I was renting rooms in the houses of other people. And I found those on a Facebook group that now has 11,000 people on it. It's called Expats Oaxaca. And everyone knows about this group because all the expats are on that group. And they're always posting, people are always posting their homes that they're renting and stuff. But I would definitely say either that group posts or Facebook Marketplace.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And right now I'm paying about $400 a month.
For a one bedroom, two bedroom?
For an apartment. Like I don't have any roommates or anything. It has 2 bedrooms, but the one I'm in is kind of like an office. So it could be used as a bedroom, but I use it as an office space. So yeah, 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bathroom, living room.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you talk about the art scene, what's that like? Because often we do hear about San Miguel de Allende being like a haven for artists, but I
Hmm.
feel like the vibe is different in Oaxaca versus there.
The art scene here is immense. There's so much. It's like hard to choose. Like everyone has a workshop. They call them talleres. There's a taller everywhere. I have friends who are artists. They all have their own workshops every quarter. You'll see pottery workshops, screen printing workshops. Um, what do you call it? I forget the name of. They call it grabado here, but I don't know what the name is. It's basically like It's a method where you carve a figure into the wood and you
And
put
then you
ink over it.
stamp.
Yeah, you stamp the paper on it. So I don't know what that's called in English, but yeah, so there's always opportunities, and that's how a lot of these artists make their money. A lot of these artists depend on tourists to take their workshops, to take their classes. So there's always classes happening, so much that it's like I don't know what to choose from. There's also a lot of workshops about uh, like textile workshops, focusing on using traditional dyeing methods, natural colors. But yeah, Oaxaca is I've never been to San Miguel de Allende, but it's definitely saturated.
I would say that because there was another question about are the workshops affordable for locals?
Do they mean like the
Yeah,
classes?
yeah.
Honestly, wouldn't say so because I've looked at some of these prices. They're like,
No,
1,000 pesos. I'm like, this is definitely for tourists. Like,
yeah, because the average person is not going to spend 1,000 pesos for a couple of hours of instruction.
right.
That's
Especially
like,
to learn something that's part of their culture. It's like my grandma does this. Why am I going to spend, yeah.
well, it's funny you mentioned that because that was my plan either for this summer or last summer to help me kind of like get off the plateau with my Spanish was to
Hmm.
find some little pueblo in Oaxaca where they could teach me like textile stuff. But I
Hmm.
figured if I'm there and everybody else speaks Spanish, I have no choice but to like step up and speak Spanish too. But
Yeah.
I couldn't find you.
I'm
I kept
sorry.
I kept finding organizations that were run by white folks, and I was not confident. Like I there was no way these workshops were meant for local
Yeah.
folks. But
Yeah.
I'm like, I will pay the gringo charge as long as I know like the family that's teaching me this skill, like they're getting the bulk of that money. I have no problem
Right.
paying it. But I couldn't
Right.
verify that. So my little plan had to be put on the shelf.
Yeah.
Um, but now that I found you, we're gonna put
Yeah.
something in action.
And I know people. I know people who, you know, the locals. So yeah, I could hook you up. It doesn't even have to be a formal thing. Like, hey, this is my friend. She wants to learn. She can help pay for the materials. And be like, yeah, sure, come through.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for reaching out. This
Thank you for
has been
having me.
great. Oh,
I'm so happy to like talk, share my experience. Yeah, it's just I
but
have a lot of stuff I've been wanting to talk about. So
well, like I said, we hear about like, oh, you got to go visit Oaxaca, but I've not really heard many Black women or Black people sharing
mhm.
their experience of living there. So I am so thankful that you reached out and we had this opportunity to have you on.
Thank
Um,
you.
you're very, very welcome. Thank you guys for joining us live here. If you're watching this on the replay and you want to check out Chisama's company, Custom Tradition, there will be a link in the description. You can either buy stuff or donate,
Hmm.
right? Okay, perfect, perfect. Because we're all about supporting. Because how many the all the artisans you work with female?
Yeah,
Okay,
all the
see, so
collectives. Yeah,
we're all about empowering women here. So
yeah,
definitely
definitely.
our thing, our thing. Okay, night, y'all.
All
Thanks for
right. Good night.
joining